Hello and welcome back to another season of the Health One podcast. This is the first episode of season five, I do believe. I keep saying it wrong because I still can't believe we're on season five, which is incredible. And I still can't believe how much the podcast is growing and growing. And yeah, I'm just excited for the next season. I think obviously the podcast evolves as I evolve, and the guests, the topics, the conversations that I have are, yeah, they're going deeper and deeper, and I've less fear with what I'm talking about as well. And so today's topic is going to be all about my experience with plant medicine. And the only plant medicine that I've done so far is shrooms. I don't know why I feel a bit awkward today. Hmm. I think it's because it's so low down. I do too high up. Okay, I feel a bit better there. Okay, maybe I should have planned this. Okay, scrap the. Let's start over. Look at me. Hello and welcome back to another season and another episode of the Health One podcast. We are starting season five today, and this is episode number one of season five. I still can't believe we're on season five. I was talking to my VA Amy, shout out to Amy, and we were chatting about the next season, and I said something like season four, and she's like, "No, we've done season four." I was like, "Oh, okay." So way ahead of myself, but also very exciting. Like how exciting. I've had 4 seasons of amazing guests, 4 seasons of incredible conversations, 4 seasons of vulnerability, knowledge, education, like just everything. And I think the podcast definitely evolves as I evolve as well. And so today's topic is going to be talking about plant medicine and my experience with psychedelic mushrooms. A topic that I have been very not scared, but like I have been obviously resistant to some extent to share this topic and to talk about it because of judgment and because of I suppose like psychedelic mushrooms aren't necessarily legal, and the legalization process has started, and particularly in the research on the support of healing and mental health. So, that process has been kickstarted here in Australia. They have basically given the go ahead. I'm not sure, like there's like legalization, there's like decriminalization, there's approval for certain criteria and certain settings and so on. And at the minute it is approved for mental health. And I know that some people are getting some people are able to be qualified as psychedelic practitioners, psychedelic therapists, post trip integration practitioners and so on. Like there's so much amazing careers coming out of this amazing healing space. So yeah, I feel like that has been something that's helped me feel a little bit more encouraged to talk about it openly, because like obviously plant medicine, so this is a psychedelic. Okay. I'm going to use the term plant medicine interchangeably with shrooms. And I also have not planned this podcast. I'm literally just winging it. I'm just going to chat about whatever comes up. So, I might be chopping and changing a little bit. I might talk about some things, might forget some things. So just bear with me. But I do want to start this by saying, we've already started, of course, but I want to start by saying this is just my experience. This is just my understanding of the research. This is my me sharing my journey and my experience for educational purposes, to help break down the stigma, to help shine a light on something that can be incredibly healing. But it is not me advising you to go and do psychedelic mushrooms. Okay, do your own research, seek support professionally, like look up. There's so much more people who are educating on this that I'm doing a way better job than I'm going to do today. So I'm not like standing up here pretending to be an expert. I'm not standing up here pretending to be this person that is like everyone needs to go do it. And to be honest, I made a YouTube video a few months ago after my first experience solo in a healing setting, which I'm going to talk about. And I sat on it for ages because there was just something that I just felt I didn't want to share it just yet. And I'm glad that I did, because I have found out more research about like it isn't appropriate for all people. Some people can experience like PTSD from a psychedelic mushroom experience if it's not integrated appropriately, if they are not if they're not already aware or if it's done in an inappropriate setting and so on. So there is a lot of, there is some risks. There obviously is quite a lot of amazing experiences and very like healing experiences, but I'm not going to say all about my experience without giving some sort of a warning. And it's not to scare people, but I do have to say that like I have seen research, I have had my own not so great experience, but then great on another hand. So I'm going to talk about that. So again, just to highlight, just to reiterate my experience, my journey, my understanding, and it is not me standing up here saying I know everything. You need to do your own research, see if it's appropriate for you, and yeah, weigh up the pros and cons basically. So yeah, just wanted to make that clear. Because I do know it is a very taboo subject, and obviously if it's still like unregulated, there is a lot of shit happening out there that's not being controlled, let's say, or not being supported fully. So yeah. So that's reason number one. Reason number one was because it wasn't legal and because of the taboo. It is, psychedelics are seen as still a drug, even though I'm talking about psychedelics that are not chemically or man-made. They are plant medicine. They're natural, which is psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, and I'm going to call them probably shrooms for the foreseeable of this podcast. So yeah, so that's all I'm talking about today. Because people do still have that association with drugs, and I'm not naive. I understand that people like have a very negative understanding of any sort of drug because of addiction, because of the harm and the turmoil that it can cause families, the individuals, and so on. So again, just want to reiterate that I'm not talking about any of that subject today, because it's just not what the intention of this podcast is simply just to share my experience. Okay, now that we've cleared that up, where will I start? Yeah, I suppose I don't really know where to start, but let's just go with the flow, see what happens. I have done psychedelic mushrooms maybe 6 times now. I would have done it twice in an experience with my friends in a group setting, and it was the most gorge ever. I was really scared because one, I actually do not like mushrooms. I hate the fucking taste of them. They're weird, they smell they're slimy, they're just weird. So I don't like them, right? I also don't like weed. I don't like it. I just hate how it affects me. I literally I can't remember the last time I've smoked weed or like had, I think it was like Amsterdam like many years ago. Yeah, I think it would have been like 2015 or 2016 or something, like crazy long ago. And I've just never liked how weed has interacted with me. And I think when people talk about mushrooms, they talk about it kind of being like weed. But that's my interpretation of it, that it has been anyway. So I was like, I don't really like it. I'm not going to like mushrooms. So I was away with friends. We're on an island, and I'm not going to name places because I just don't want to be liable for anything. But basically we were on an island, and we did a kind of group setting together, and I took a really small dose because I was afraid. And I think that's really important. If you are afraid, do not go into this with a heavy dose, because like what's the point? You're just going to be in a state of fear, and that's not really. And like I am going to talk you through like how I went from kind of like taking it in a social setting to now I use it for healing purposes. And this is my interpretation and my appreciation of how mushrooms are very much like, for me personally, a healing spiritual experience. Some people like taking it in social settings, and that's all good. That's all good for them. I may take it in a social setting again, but I just feel like they're very, I want to use the word sacred. So I'm probably going to be a little bit spiritual today, like a bit very much spiritual today, but I feel like they're very sacred. I feel like they are called plant medicine, and I feel like they are medicine. I feel like, and you're going to understand when I talk about it a little bit more. But I would have started with a very small dose with my friends, and then I would have basically, tiptoed my way into it that one night. It was like a very, I suppose, weird or unusual experience. Then I took it the next night because I felt more comfortable, and I took a much higher dose, and that was another experience. So that would have been twice in 2 days. Then I a few weeks later, I would have taken it. Sorry, actually, a few months later, I would have taken it again with two friends, and we would have had it again, kind of in a social setting, but kind of in a healing setting, and very much connecting and like very much going deep and having important and vulnerable conversations. And we would have done cards and stuff like that. It would have been a very special evening. And then I would have done it the next time by myself. So the next time I did it by myself was a very therapeutic and intentional setting. And that was like the I suppose that was like the turning point for me with mushrooms, and like how much more of an appreciation and like fascination I had with how healing and how like I'll talk you through it, but just how incredible it's like years of therapy in one sitting. It's fucking crazy. And then the next time I would have done it would have been intentionally by myself as well. And it would have been very much, I'm trying to not give too much away about where it was, but it was very much a setting of a closing of a chapter, and I was moving on to the next chapter. And I took what I had been taking before, the same dosage, thinking that, this would be absolutely fine. And what happened that time was I mixed it with vitamin or with citric acid, which I'm going to explain in a minute, and that like really enhances the dose. And that would have been an experience that I had that I felt like I took too much, and I felt like it was too intense. So beforehand, I had recorded the video that I was going to put up on YouTube, and I was very much sharing about how amazing it was and how like this is like what happens and people have bad trip, but like my experience was da. And maybe it was a little what word will I use? Naive, or a little bit limited or uneducated, maybe, because I was about to kind of like just tell people and blah blah without kind of the information and the warning that I'm giving you today. So yeah, I think I've just come more towards a position of like respect and understanding, and like thinking about, I was very spiritual about it before. Obviously it was social, then it was very spiritual, it was very deep, and the medicines for everyone. And then I've come around to this kind of like, bringing the science back into it and come back to that middle ground, as we always do. So yeah, so that episode would have, I don't know, that episode was the podcast episode, that experience for me would have been very intense. And I would have had a lot of issues then afterwards. This time around, I did it again just recently, and I would have been kind of afraid and decided to go with a lower dose. And I'm very glad that I did, because I also drank it with citric acid again. And what I mean by that is I drank a juice that had orange juice. It was orange, ginger, and carrot and apple. And the previous time I had like orange, lemon, and ginger. And the reason I was drinking the ginger in it was because I wanted to have something that would like settle the nausea. Because I get a lot of nausea. I'll talk through the symptoms in a minute. But I read then afterwards that the citric acid like helps with conversion of I'm not sure the exact science terms, but it's something like psilocybin converts into psilocybin, or the other way around, and it basically becomes the hallucinogenic. So it's not hallucinogenic until it's in our bodies, and our body will, what's the word I'm looking for? Our body will convert it to the active component, to the psychedelic. And so that's I think that's incredible that it's in our bodies. That is where that conversion happens. And then also, like, this is really like about nature and stuff like that. Like I know with ayahuasca that like there's two plants that basically they mix together. They're not psychedelic, or they're not in any way hallucinogenic, or have any sort of activity within your body until they're combined together. And like these ancient native tribes know exactly what two plants to mix together to create this concoction of what helps you access healing and deep healing and integration, growth and integration, blah 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 blah. Deep healing and growth. Okay, so what's next? Oh yeah. And essentially what happens with citric acid is that it will convert, my understanding of what I've read is that it will convert it quicker, or more of it. So it makes it more intense. So yeah, so that's what happened this time around and last time. And I kind of forgot about that component of the last time. I thought it was just actually the dosage, but it was that combined. So I was really happy that I took a lower dose this time, because yeah, it kicked in very quickly and I was not where I wanted to be when it kicked in, which was really funny. But again, like for anyone else that could have happened to with not much experience, that could be very like very very terrifying. Whereas I was able to laugh afterwards. I was actually pissing myself laughing. But anyways, so yeah, so my journey with shrooms has evolved very much so. And even like there's definitely some sort of like I know there's going to be judgment listening to this and like even I used to judge people for this kind of shit and like yeah again it's just my experience. I even like I'm slightly holding myself back a little bit with this episode, but like I just feel like it's a highly requested topic. Anytime I talk about it on my Instagram, everyone's kind of replying, so we're going to talk about it today. What will I go into next? So when they talk about shrooms, they talk about the set and the setting and the intention. Okay, I think those are the three: set, setting, intention is what's really important when you're going to go on a trip. Okay. So the set, hmm, I can't remember the difference between set and setting, but I think like one's your environment, who you're with, kind of what state that you're in, and what kind of intention is behind it as well, in terms of like, are you doing this for healing and so on? Are you doing this in a social occasion? Like, are you in a party setting that you're doing this with, that this might freak you the fuck out? So when you're doing it in the context or with the intention of it being like a plant healing medicine, it might not be best to do it in a group of people. Now, I found it was really helpful the first time doing it because I didn't really trip out. I took such a low dosage that my body had like these reactions, and I was like dancing and laughing and giggling and like just having a really good time and felt really at peace and really connected. And the people that I was around, I felt really safe with. And it was a really enjoyable experience. And I didn't have hallucinations. Like I really didn't. The next night, I still didn't have like deep trippy hallucinations, but when I closed my eyes I was able to see the music. I know that sounds mental. There was music playing, but there was all these patterns of colors and shapes that I was able to see with the music, and it was really fucking cool. So that was enjoyable. The next time that I did it then with two friends, that was hallucination. I was able to see hallucination, like my tattoo was moving, there was colors and shapes and everything. And yeah, it was very like you're very like in control of it. You can kind of like be in it, but then kind of pull yourself back out of it if you take the right dose. So you can kind of be like if I'm looking over here to the right now, I could kind of start looking and I start zoning out and you'll see like the hallucinogenics. But if I quickly move my attention over to here, that kind of movement can, I suppose, I think it's the focus and the stillness that is what creates the intensity of the patterns, is maybe my interpretation of it. And yeah, so that would have been a moment where like I would have been kind of going into it, but kind of holding back. And like, it was a very emotional time. It was around the time that like we lost one of our friends. So it was a very emotional time. So I feel like at that time I still didn't really want to go so deep, but I was also doing like a lot of healing work with like my family and friends and different things. Like that was last year was a really like healing, going deep period of my life, of really like going back to my inner child, going back to things that have happened to me throughout my life. And I suppose like, if you've been listening to the podcast, you probably will have known that from listening to each episode, because I very much shared my vulnerability along the way. So yeah, so that would have been kind of going in of it, kind of going out of it, kind of giggly, kind of like not necessarily allowing the medicine part of it. And what I mean by that is like when I did it the next time, it was very different. So the next time that I did it was by myself. And I got that idea because two of my friends had gone and done a retreat. And basically, they had done a retreat where they're blindfolded and there's music playing, and then they're kind of guided by a practitioner. And I went and had a look at like multiple documentaries from that point. I went and had just did like my own research and really again really tried to understand the science and the spirituality, because a lot of people that I was hearing from was all about spirituality, but I really wanted to understand that on a scientific level as well, because that's how my brain works. But what I was fascinated by was that there is a lot of science about this and that there is a lot of research being done for it. And there is a lot of support and approval now for hallucinogenics and the effects they can have on mental health, depression, anxiety, bipolar, PTSD. Now, there are some contradictions. Now, maybe actually bipolar isn't one of them. So, yeah, so this is what I'm saying. If you've got mental health issues, it is such a, like a blanket term, but there are some like schizophrenia, I think is the one that stands out to me that like you shouldn't be doing this for. So this is what I mean by like really make sure that this is for you and it is a good it's in alignment for you. But what you'll see is like you'll always see people talking about their experience, and it's the most single-handed I don't know how to say this, the most single-handed transformational experience of their life. I think that's what I'm trying to say. But with the shrooms, it is literally the most transformative experience that they've ever had. And what's so wholesome is like there's like people that are at the age of like 60, 70, not 60, sorry, 70, 80, 90, and they've gone about their whole life and they just kind of were like wanting to be part of the research. They were like, fuck it, what do I have to lose? And they literally said that it was the best thing that's ever happened to them, like their whole life, the best event that's ever happened to them. A lot of people said they've connected to spirituality or their form of the universe or God or whatever it is, and been able to reprocess quite a lot of events and find a lot of peace and healing. So there were studies done on patients that were like terminally ill, and so on, and like really as part of a multidisciplinary approach for like healing, like post-cancer treatment and stuff. And it's just gorgeous. It's really, really nice to see because, these people didn't go into this like being spiritual or whatever, and they were able to access this new form of like consciousness. So I have been trying to think about how shrooms operate from both a scientific and a spiritual perspective. So on a scientific level, the way that they describe it is, and again, go look up YouTube videos or listen to podcasts or whatever on people who are studying this, and they will absolutely explain this better than me. But it's to do with basically the shrooms basically allows us to access pathways and connections that we can't normally access. So it really helps you make these connections. And I think about that in a way that from a spiritual perspective as well, is that it helps us dissolve the ego temporarily so that we can see these connections and we can see what's actually there, but the ego doesn't let us go there. And just for anyone listening, if you haven't heard me talk about the ego before, the ego is very much like your identity, yourself, your protection, your defensiveness, your like people associate ego as being kind of like they decide they associate it with like say that man, he's very egotistical because he's arrogant and he's rich and he's this, that, and the other. That's people's association with ego. But your ego is also you when something happens and you don't want to apologize because that person hurt you, when maybe there's two people that have to take accountability and responsibility and apologize to one another, or like it can come from a victim place as well. It can be that person that's like overtly aggressive or arrogant or confident or whatever, but it can also very much be from that place of victimhood and hurt and pain and suffering. So, this is just to expand your version of the ego. And shrooms is then to get rid of your ego. No, I'm joking. No, shrooms, you never want to get rid of your ego as well. Okay. If you want to be like a conscious person who operates from a place of like love and gratitude and compassion and empathy for people, you do want to work on your ego. You do want to rein it the fuck in, but you also don't need to get rid of your ego because your ego protects you and keeps you safe. At the end of the day, that is the role of the ego. And it helps you have a sense of who you are. And then also, yeah, so there's a balance that's needed pretty much. And the way I describe shrooms is that it dissolves my ego so that it lets me access healing without the voice of the ego. So if I wanted to heal in a certain situation, let's say this person did this to me, the ego will say they did this to me, they deserve to suffer, never forgive them, hatred, bitch about them, whatever the fuck. Okay. But with ego management or dissolution or like that temporary kind of like, let's put the ego in the box while we're on shrooms, it really helps you to did I record this? Yeah. It really helps you to access the stories of your life experience without there being that kind of running script with the tone of the ego, if that makes sense. Like the tone of the ego, like I said, is the victim, is the he did this to me, da 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 da, etc. So when I did that first shrooms experience by myself, kind of blindfolded with music and so on, I was able to access healing for certain things that have happened to me throughout my life. And I'll go into that now. Okay. So when I kind of prepare myself for a shrooms experience, they say you're meant to fast. I don't like fully fasting because my PCOS girlies out there know that your blood sugars get too low and you get too weak and dizzy. Let me just move. So I don't like to be too fasted. And they say to fast because, you have an empty stomach and you're actually going to be able to allow the medicine to do what it needs to do. And it can be to do with like energy as well. But and like even if I'm going to do Reiki, I try be fasted or like somewhat fasted. Like I try and have my breakfast. I'll either do early morning Reiki sessions and have my breakfast after, or I will try and do it like mid-afternoon when I've had my lunch at like 12, I do it 3. So I have been somewhat fasted. I'm not just after having my food. And also because it can make you feel nauseous. I get severe nausea when I have shrooms. So like it's a type of nausea that I'm not going to actually get sick, which is very, very important because you can just breathe through it. So again, this is just my experience. I don't know what other symptoms people get, but the main one for me is that nausea. And it's something that I've learned to breathe through, and I can kind of soothe myself and like calm myself when it comes. It's kind of like a wave, it comes and it passes. So yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's not a nice experience, but I feel like I'm able to kind of override it. I'm able to kind of like understand that that's a con, but like the pros for me in this experience are better. So yeah, so like I said, there could be other symptoms or side effects people have. Just make sure to look up that so you understand what could possibly happen. And because like if you get nausea and you're feeling sick, that could really overwhelm you and you like freak you out. Whereas like I know that that's something that I experience, and like I'm able to breathe through. I know my solution. I know it's something that helps me. There are other solutions like if you feel really intense or you feel like it's kind of too much, you can kind of have sugar and food and kind of bring it back down. There's lots of other things, like I said, other educators that will explain these kind of things a little bit better. So yeah, so I very much will set my intentions. I will clear my schedule. I will turn off my devices except for my music. I will get like a spiritual kind of playlist or playlist that I'll use for like my women's circles or just really like healing kind of connective, acoustic, vibey kind of playlists. Okay, so that's what I will use. What I will do is like I said, I'll be somewhat fasted, whether it's like 3 to 4 hours of fasting, or I really only had a light breakfast that morning or something. Like I really don't encourage fasting from a hormonal perspective. So I try not to do it, but obviously this is one day, it's not going to kill me. So I'll still be fasted, but not fully fasted because it's just not my vibe. Hungry gal over here. But I will set my intention. I will make sure that I have like told a friend that I'm kind of doing it. I'll probably tell a few of my friends because I get so excited and they know what's up, and like I know I can contact them if I need to. I will set my intention. So I'll get my journal out and I will basically set the intention. So like if I want to connect, if I want to experience this type of healing, if I want to understand this situation particularly and this event and what happened in this relationship or whatever, I will do that. My experience and I don't want to give advice, but maybe my advice, I suppose, is to always be open, because if you're trying to control what happens, you're not going to be open to what comes up and what surfaces. And I think that's the most beautiful part about psychedelic mushrooms, is that they will show you what you need to heal. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. So when you are setting your intentions, keep them open. Like, yes, your intentions are whatever, because you want to go deeper, because you want to connect, or because you want to explore this other part of yourself or whatever, but keep them open. Because if you try to control and something else comes up that you don't want to go to because you've set your intention that you don't want to, you're not going to get the healing experience from it. Okay. And I think that's what's really, really important, is to keep it open. So I will take the medicine in whatever format. I've drank it before, I've had it in a chocolate form before, I've had it in multiple different forms. So whatever works for you. Um, and I will ingest the medicine and I will probably do some sort of meditation and I will start listening to music like the minute I'm kind of setting my intentions and so on and taking it because I really want to get myself into that kind of peaceful, grounded, safe space in my body. Okay. And the environment that you're in is also important. I know a lot of people that like to do them outside. I personally don't like to do them outside because I don't know who the fuck is going to come up and talk to me when I'm outside. And I feel like that would freak me out. And you want to set yourself up in a way as best as possible that this is going to be a safe space, whether that's inside or outside. So if you can go and do them outside and it's a safe space and it's enclosed or it's whatever, go for it. But I feel personally I don't have access to that. So or haven't had access to that except for the first few times I've done them with friends on the island and stuff like that. And it's been beautiful outside, especially if you can be outside in nature. I think it's amazing. Like that's a common thing that people will say is to be outside in nature because you can kind of really like you can see the trees. I know that sounds crazy, but you can really feel the energy of the trees. You look at nature so differently and you've this such profound appreciation for nature. It's incredible. Like the shapes, they just stand out more. That's how I can explain it. So, yeah, I would start, I would try and combine nature with a safe space if you can, whatever that looks like. Like, I don't know, renting a place for the weekend or something and kind of being outside in nature and then coming in or whatever. I'll leave that up to you to be creative. But yeah, so I've had multiple different environments, multiple different settings, and now because I felt comfortable doing it alone, it doesn't really matter too much where I do it because it's about for me going really deep. Um, what was that other thing I was going to say? Yes, I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, crap, gone. Okay, I don't know where to start now. But yeah, I suppose again, just to reiterate, you don't have to do this solo. Like if you're really scared, like maybe you shouldn't do it solo. There are retreats that I've heard of people doing them and like different countries and stuff like that over the world that they're doing them in and it's a safe space and you've got someone there to support you and there's this thing called a trip sitter that someone will sit with you and be that safety for you, I suppose, and be there to kind of calm you down and help you through it if you need to. And like there are like people that do this for a career and a job and or maybe people who are like a friend and they've done it before and they can help you and so on. There's also obviously like I said psychedelic therapists which can like really guide you through the session and really help you through that healing process. So yeah, that is that is all about I suppose the lead up. And now I suppose I like even I because I did them recently, so I was about to jump on my Instagram stories and kind of talk about it, and then because I was on such a high vibe this morning, like ultimate vibe of like love and gratitude, and I was about to go talk about it, and I was like, you know what? I've been holding off doing this podcast for quite a long time, so let's jump on the podcast and talk about it. So because I was scared the last time doing it, I was afraid of this time a little bit. So last time what happened was because it was so intense, it lasted a lot longer. So it was like 7 hours, whereas previous times has been like 3 to 4 hours. So it was it was double the time. And I got to a point where I was actually like I was like crying constantly, like constantly crying. And I wasn't really in a good headspace back then either. But it was obviously what I needed. And I fully believe that for myself personally, every time that I do the shrooms, that it shows me what I need to look at. It shows me what I need to release. It shows me what I need to heal. And each time I keep jumping from thing to thing because the all just keeps coming up. But each time that I do it, it literally brings me through an experience for me to feel into something that maybe I suppressed in the past, or to help me see something in a different perspective and a different light. Okay. And that's really important for like healing and trauma and moving forward and forgiveness and all these great things that can help us access peace and acceptance of what has happened to us in our life, acceptance of how people have treated us, acceptance of how we've shown up in certain situations, maybe self-abandoned, maybe froze, maybe whatever. So I remember that first time that I was doing it, and it was the solo time for myself, and it brought me to 4 different points in my life and some people in my life's life. And how it showed me, it brought me back to, say, for example, one situation was my 10-year-old self. It brought me back to a situation where I felt abandoned. And at that time, so what we do as humans is we have a filtering system and we filter stuff in or out. And at that time, I filtered in that I was being abandoned. Okay. And if you had told me now, was I being abandoned in that situation? I would say no. But at that time, that kickstarted my people abandoned me belief. Okay. And then throughout the rest of my life, I have created this narrative that people abandon me. When you look at it from a different perspective, which is difficult to do when you're in your ego, which is difficult to do when you're in your fear or your fight or flight, or you're in your trauma body, you can't actually access the part of your brain that helps you think rationally about it because you feel it in your body. Your nervous system is triggered. Okay. So this is where shrooms brought me to. And I swear to God, it's like a film. Okay. It's like you're sitting down, and in between all the hallucinations, all the psychedelics, all the colors, all the vividness, like anytime you watch a video about shrooms, it's really cool because they definitely have like creative artists that like create all these kind of like, they put music on and they show you all these like funky, groovy things. And if you think about like the 70s art and how funky and like, yeah, groovy that all is, and all these colors and patterns and shapes and swirls, that's absolutely inspired by shrooms because that was a movement back then. But anyway, sidetracking. But in between all these crazy fucking shapes and cool things and stuff just popping out at me, it's like, for me, it's a combination of pictures and colors and movement. And there's also like a knowing and an understanding that I'm getting messages from it. And some of it's just batshit crazy, which is really funny because I'll be like, okay, I understand this and this is happening, and I understand this and this is happening. Then sometimes I'm like, what does this mean? And I'm like, I'm just tripping balls. So, it can be very lighthearted, but it can also be very serious. And yeah, so what I'll say is, say for that example, brought me to this situation. I felt abandoned, brought me into my body, helped me feel what I felt like at that moment in time. And what I would have done at that time is just like suppressed it and moved forward and like went into this hyper abandonment mode. Hyper independence mode because of the abandonment. And what I was able to do was actually feel into myself at that time and have this compassion and cry for myself and feel for myself. And that's something that we don't do. We don't honor our emotions at the time. We don't process the situation at the time. And we determine whatever belief about ourselves or about the event. And that's what can stay if it's not processed appropriately. And that's what trauma healing can do for you. You can process a situation in a very different way that can give you a new perspective and can help you feel better about yourself as well, give you your strength and your empowerment, versus feeling like a victim. So that situation helped me process it with the emotions. Then I was brought to like another situation where I might have felt happier, or another emotion was brought up, and I was shown the body of someone else that I know who I would have had healing to do with that person in that relationship. And it would have helped me see them from a different light of compassion and understanding. And like, I felt like deep, deep sadness for them and just like felt their pain, and helped me like view this person in a very different light. And it was very much a healing situation for me. And then obviously for them, because of now the relationship has improved. Other situations of like bullying, relationships, romantic relationships, and forgiveness. So obviously brought me to this place of like helping myself bring up the emotion, whether it was like anger or hurt or compassion or empathy or sadness or whatever, and whatever way that would manifest in my body, then whether I was releasing very physically, kind of shaking or dancing or moving, whether I was crying, whether I was laughing, whether I was whatever, it can very much come out in your body as a releasing way. And again, this is my experience. Other people might experience this very differently. And each time it was very much, okay, this is what happened. This was this was my experience of what I thought happened or how I dealt with it. And this is how I can view it in a different way. And this is how I can move on. This is how I can move forward. I can let go, I can release, I can forgive. And again, the forgiveness is about myself, not about anyone else. The forgiveness is so that you are releasing that pain, that hurt, that weight, that resistance, carrying this shit with you for the rest of your life versus actually accessing this place of inner peace and love for, yourself, people around you, and ultimately coming back to this place of higher consciousness, your higher self, and a really nice person to be and to be around, and it's really lovely. So yeah, so it was like that first time that I did it solo. I had like four distinct incidents. I like forgave one of my exes. I was shown a situation that I deeply, deeply suppressed of how I was bullied, and gave me this new kind of empathy for myself. I didn't come to forgiveness for the people that were doing it at that point in time. But it was like, it was showing me how I was affected and how I was shamed by women and how that was attached to like my sexual shame that I had for myself. So last year was a very healing year for me with sexual trauma. And I was really focused on men, obviously, because I am identify as straight. So I would have been focused on men with shame, and like I did my pole dancing, and I was like really focused on like certain incidents of like sexual trauma that happened throughout my life. And it was like this piece that I hadn't even thought about looking at to do with how women have shamed me for being sexual in the past. So it's really, really interesting. And I would not have been able to access that way of thinking without shrooms. I really don't think I would have, because it helps you go so, so deep into the mind. And I swear you're not even consciously thinking about it. It's a picture that just arrives, or a thought that just arrives, or a feeling that just arrives. It just happens. It just is like you're watching a movie and it shows you the next clip. It shows you the next clip. It shows you the next clip. And then you're processing as you go. Yeah. And again, the kind of more intense one that I did, the reason why I felt like that was it was so intense because it was so long. And I felt like I had like no more tears left. It really helped me, because it really helped me with like my relationship with my parents has been transformed because of shrooms. And I've told them this, and they're like, "What the fuck? Are you okay, hon?" And it's really funny because they don't get it, but they're also just kind of like, "Okay, well, this is amazing," do you know? Yeah. So they've really helped me. But what's really important is the integration and is the work that I'm doing outside of that. I'm not putting the pressure on the shrooms to heal me. I'm not giving away my own power. And the shrooms help you. Like I could have chosen to suppress and ignore all them things, but I was very open. I was very much allowing the medicine as such to do the work that it needed to do to really bring me to these places, and not suppressing and not trying to control it either. Just very much. And again, I don't know if that's because of the way I've kind of like tiptoed into it, or not tiptoed. What word do I want to use? What's the fucking word for like a ladder? Fuck me, my brain's really not working today. I don't know if this is because I've done it in like phases and I've kind of like upped the dose little by little, that it's made me feel more comfortable with kind of not trying to control, or like really just releasing and honoring what's going to come up. Um, but yeah, ultimately, the other day, the experience for me has brought me to a place of like creativity, happiness. But I have to say, like the 2 weeks before, and really funny, Liz, who was on the podcast, she always talks about how plant medicine works on you before you even take it. And I feel like a few weeks ago when I decided that I was going to take it again, something shifted in me. And I feel like, I don't know if that was because I really was consciously trying to help myself and improve myself anyway. And then I was like at the same time thinking, let's take the shrooms. That will be really something that can help me go deep and integrate and heal. Or if it was working on me or whatever. Again, I don't know. But I really do feel like the last few weeks I've been feeling so giddy and hyper and just talking shit and doing accents and just being my full self and not being so consumed by fear and stress, which like I know my last episode that I said with moving to Australia has been amazing, but like it has also not been without its struggles. I think I spoke about that on the podcast, but like it has been really stressful. It has been a really big change. It has been a really big transitional period of my life because I had gone from this like, yeah, living the suitcase freedom life to this responsibility and like really hard work. And like I've worked really hard over the last few months. And it's paying off and I'm really fucking grateful. But also, yeah, it's not been without its struggles, very much emotional few months with like again stuff in my personal life and things that I've been able to heal from. But like with the shrooms, I really came to this place of like love for everyone. And I was just like, no bad vibes, no hard feelings with anyone, and came to this conclusion as well. This was one of my big lessons was that like we have these soul contracts with people. And when people spoke about this before, I was really like, yeah, okay, that's just like your interpretation of spirituality or whatever. But it was like this knowing for me. And I'd never used the word soul contracts before, the phrase soul contracts before. But it was like in the shrooms, it showed me all these people who have like hurt me or done something to me or betrayed me or abandoned me or whatever belief I created about these situations. But it showed me that like people serve a purpose. So there's this phrase like people are in your life for a season, a reason, and a lifetime. And it was very much that like inner knowing that like the contract with these people have finished. The contract with this person was there for that purpose, and this was your lesson from it. This is how you've grown from it. This is whatever. And that was like a big thing for me to just come back to this place of love and peace and healing for people because the ego was kind of put in that little box, like I said, because the ego was put aside for a minute. And yeah, I just feel really good. I feel really creative. This morning I had just written out some ideas of some events that I'm going to create when I'm back in Dublin. And yeah, I'm just wait, actually I don't want to say back in Dublin because I don't want to say where I am now. And I just have created got some brainstorming and I did some events for I'm gonna have in Dublin and I'm very, very excited for yeah, I feel like I've been given a reset button and it was really enjoyable. At the same time, I'm dancing. I very much have this like my feminine really comes out with mushrooms and I dance and I move and I have the most like one of the experiences were very much like sensual dancing and it was very much like my inner sexual goddess was coming out and I was like, who is this bitch? It was actually like it was something I've never done before and it was never something that I had like the way I would describe it was like very animalistic dancing to the music, but it was so incredibly healing and moving and it was just like reignited my sexual sensual energy and it was incredible. Um and yeah, and then another time was just like real like free dancing and just like singing and just feeling so fucking grateful. And I think then what's important is the integration afterwards as well. It's important that you're not like jumping from like mushroom trip to mushroom trip and just like it's kind of like reading a book. People read a lot of books, but they don't integrate the knowledge that they've learned in the books. They don't actually try to embed these new habits or belief systems or whatever. They're just constantly chasing knowledge and not actually trying to change the version of yourself that you are. Like if you are trying to heal, if you're trying to grow, you take concepts, you take beliefs, you take new identities and you basically embody them and you change part of yourself. Obviously you don't have to inherently change yourself, but you know, you're worthy exactly as you are, but we're always a work in progress. But the embodiment, the integration, so I can go about this. I can just now, I've done my shroom trip and not try and stay in this vibration or this energy of love and peace and gratitude and compassion and empathy for people. Or I could go back to this version of myself that still is like, you know, the people, say, for example, that came up in my shroom trip that I was like trying to heal from or trying to see it in a different light. I could go back to being like this, that, and the other about them. Whereas I've come to this place that I'm being offered this sense of freedom and peace. And I want to say tapped into that. So it's really important that I try to stay on top of that so I can really ingrain that within me. And that's the same as any behavior change. Like I'm going to be speaking on the podcast with Nikki next, and we speak quite a lot about behavior change and identity and beliefs and stuff like that. So you'll get a lot of value out of that, which is kind of like, I suppose, the next segment, I suppose, or carry on from this. where we speak quite a lot about like healing and trauma and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm gonna cut it here. I feel like that was really long and it was meant to be quite short, but um so is any of my podcasts. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got value from this. There's probably quite a lot more that I could have said on this, but I feel like I just wanted to flow with this episode because I feel like it was just my experience. It just what was wanting to come through. Um, and yeah, we laugh, we cry, we dance, we celebrate life. And for some people, listening to this might sound a bit fucking weird, me like putting a blindfold on, listening to music, like tripping balls. Like it is probably sounds a little bit abnormal and weird, but at the end of the day, everything that's like not common or not kind of mainstream is going to seem weird at first. Like meditation was fucking weird at first. It was just for hippies. Most people are doing meditation now, which is amazing. Well, some of y'all still got some work to do to get on that meditation train, but we're all moving in the right direction. And who knows, this could be very mainstream in the next few years for healing purposes. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. I'd love to know your thoughts on this episode. I'd love to know if you have done them before. I'd love to know your experience just to connect with it as well, because I just think it's magical. And as always, if you got value from this episode, I would love a little tap of the stars in Spotify or in Apple, or just to share it on with someone either, or just to share it on with someone even, or share it on your stories for other people to listen to as well. But yeah, I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in. Bye. Okay, I'll do a little still. Okay. Ow.